We're friggin' nobodies. We're Jacob and Noah. We're friggin' nobodies. Welcome to our show. We're friggin' nobodies. We don't know much. We're friggin' nobodies. We're old and out of touch.
Hi, good day.
You're winging it?
Friggin' Nobodies here. I'm winging it. Yeah,
All right.
I forgot to write my thing.
How's it going?
Okay, so this episode is about how wokeism, or, you know, if you were back in the 90s, you call it political correctness, saved comedy, made it better. That's right. Okay, now, as usual...
What this is about? I didn't write about that at all.
We write what about you want to write about, as long as it's somewhat comedy related, we should be good. I didn't write my thing, so I'm just going to explain my idea, and he's going to read his thing, and then we'll have our conversation. We'll see how it goes.
You want me to read my thing first?
No, I'm introducing it.
Okay. All right.
And that'll set
Stepping
you up
all over your introduction.
That'll set you up for your thingamajobber there.
You don't know what I've written.
Yeah, well, I can guess.
All right. He's going to do his thing.
Excuse me. Sorry. Okay, so the basic concept here, I was thinking, was that there's an awful lot of people that complain, wokeism's ruining comedy and whatnot, and earlier when I was younger in the 90s, I heard the same thing about political correctness. And I think it's kind of bullshit for a number of reasons. But number one is comedy is going to change from time to time. It always is changing from time to time. You try to listen to comedy albums from the 50s and whatnot, they're not going to hit as well as they would have if you were there in that time at that culture. Comedy's constantly changing. I don't know if it's an evolution per se, but it's definitely changing. You know, evolution would imply it's like getting better or something like that. I'm not so sure that's the case.
That's not what evolution's for.
But it's changing. You're adapting.
Yeah.
Adapting to its circumstances. So it could be an evolution, I guess. Nonetheless, so what I was thinking is that, people might complain, you can't tell jokes like racist jokes or homophobic jokes or sexist jokes or whatever anymore. And I don't even find that to be true. So if somebody had told me a sexist joke in the 90s, I probably would have just written it off as sexist and I wouldn't have laughed that much. I thought, that's a cliche old joke I would have heard old people tell. It's not funny anymore. And then as the groups of people who don't want that sort of humor around started pushing harder and harder with their narrative that that's not how we should be doing our comedy, the more those jokes suddenly became ironically funny, like in some kind of BS hipster sort of sense. And what ended up happening was that...
I thought BS hipster was a person in that.
It could be a person.
I was thinking to myself, who the hell is BS hipster, man?
Could be. So then what ends up happening is now you're laughing at the joke simply because you know you're not supposed to tell it or hear it. It's just the fact that it's being told is funny. The subject isn't necessarily funny anymore, but the context around it, you shouldn't say this word, you shouldn't tell this kind of a punchline. Suddenly they're funny amongst your friends who agree with you, that is. So like if a clearly racist person came up to me and told me a racist joke, chances are I'm not going to laugh and I might be a little condescending for a moment. But if it's one of my friends who I trust and know is a good person, or so I think, I guess, I'm probably going to laugh. Yeah, you never know. I don't know what you're doing when I'm not
Sitting
around.
right here, man.
Then all of a sudden I might be laughing at the joke simply because, it's uncomfortable. And jokes are often about breaking taboos. Now, if you create new taboos,
God damn it.
Suddenly just breaking that taboo is funny in and of itself. One of the analogies I always like to use is that if my dad were to come home from grocery shopping, back when I was younger, and he would say, here's a bag of cookies for you guys, and he puts in the cookie jar. We had a big cookie jar. It's a big mouse with an apron and stuff. You pull her head off and you pull the cookies out. It's a great cookie jar. And he said, these ones are for you. These cookies here go on the top shelf. You can't have these cookies. Well, you can bet your ass the only cookies I want now are those ones on the top shelf. I could give a damn what's in the mouse jar all of a sudden. I want the cookies I'm not allowed to have. And that's kind of what happens with a lot of issues, especially in comedy. So you're not allowed to joke about this. Well, there's a bunch of comedians scrambling to write jokes about this now because they know they're not supposed to. And so they're going to try to break those taboos and push up against those walls because that in itself becomes funny all of a sudden. It's the basic concept of what I was working with. I've noticed you go through social media now, you can hear all kinds of jokes about racism and sexism and whatnot, and they're all funny again and everybody's laughing again. Some people because they're actually that way, some people they're doing it ironically, some people are laughing for some other reason altogether. Maybe it's the situation or the context. We were just watching I Want to Be Ninja video and we were laughing pretty hard. It's horrible and it's racist, but it's kind of funny just because it's so clueless. Anyways, that was the idea. You can go ahead and read your bit now.
You got like 90% of that. Screw you.
I'm just making this up on the fly.
I made this up.
You're not supposed to be writing about what I was talking. You just said it wasn't even the same. It wasn't even related.
Well, it was until you
Well,
started
read
talking.
your crap already.
All right.
Probably great, actually.
Yeah, you know what happened to the cookies in my house? I was an only child, so whenever cookies came into the house, I would eat the cookies. So
Good story.
Yeah, my stepfather would go out and he would buy cookies that he knew I didn't like. Ooh. Because then they would never run out and he'd never have to buy them again. At the time, it was
You learned to like the bad cookies?
Yeah, eventually, but you ate them a lot slower. So at the time, it was horrible, but looking back on it, it's pretty funny. Pretty funny stuff.
I love it.
So I went with the woke comedy. What is it? And I thought the same thing you did, which is woke doesn't kill comedy any more than the politically correct movement did, or the repressive communist regime, or any other horrible system that's put in place that keeps ideas down. Comedy perseveres whether it's a whispered joke in a cafe or in some scummy basement club. That said, I really only think there's one thing that kills comedy, and that's bad jokes. I think there are a pile of ways to make a joke bad in terms of quality, but not morality. I've laughed pretty damn hard at some truly reprehensible topics because the joke is well crafted. A few years back, rape was the new taboo in comedy, and you weren't supposed to joke about it. And since then, I've heard a pile of funny rape jokes. Race, the Holocaust, murder, desperate poverty, they've all made me laugh in the proper context. They were good, well-crafted jokes. And I imagine the new woke taboo will be nothing more than presenting a challenge to comedians. And we'll be inundated with woke jokes. So why all the backlash? I'm going to get to that, but first a quick aside. I'm not a comedian, but I like to make people close to me laugh, and I like language. So groaners, dad jokes, puns, whatever you want to call them. I tell them and nobody really seems to like those jokes, including myself, so far as laughter is a measure, if that's how I'm going to measure whether they like it or not. What I'm looking for is a realization from my victim that I've wasted their brain power, and and they've had to take time to unlock what is tenuously a play on words. The groans, the slumped shoulders, the eye rolls, they're my laughter, they're my applause. Excuse me. The jokes aren't funny, and I keep telling them because in the end, I'm the idiot. I'm the butt of the joke. I'm debasing myself for my friends and family, and they keep playing along because I'm playing the fool for their and my amusement, and nobody gets hurt. The backlash on woke jokes is somebody got hurt. It was a new topic, and whether it was a straight cruelty of a passed off as a joke, somebody said something shitty and said, I'm just joking, you can't take it, or whether it was a poorly crafted joke that missed the mark, and seemed to be nothing more than abuse in one direction. The context matters, the skill matters, and when they're missed, people get hurt. There's backlash. And when I was growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, I got to overhear my parents and their friends telling jokes and learned some astoundingly racist jokes. But at the time, as an adult, when I became one, those jokes weren't popular in culture anymore. You couldn't just tell them in a crowd. But then people built a career out of doing those racist jokes. Whether it was crowd work or highlighting their own heritage, that the taboo had become a tool. And I think that's the funny part of these cultural restrictions, is what you can and can't joke about. Good comedians will never see it as a restriction. For them, it's a challenge. It's a dare. And that's incredibly powerful and positive. Because once you've made all your detractors laugh with you, that's a key part, then the conversations about culture, heritage, trauma, conflict, they all get a lot easier. And an audience that trusts a comedian is not trying to hurt them, and a comedian that trusts that the audience came to hear jokes, well, that's the common ground where the conversation starts. So as long as culture's pushing back, I think comedians have every right to push back against that culture for the restrictions that they're trying to impose, because all it's doing is opening a conversation.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And one of my favorite jokes that I came into as an adult, I mentioned it earlier, was whenever the funniest racist joke that I heard when I was an adult and it wasn't cool to tell them anymore was a buddy of mine at work said, you know how every racist joke starts, right? Which is a great joke. You don't need anything said. Everybody knew it was wrong. Good stuff.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing. You know, listening to you, I sort of realized something I was thinking before, is that so I don't think PC or wokeism or any of these things, and I mean, first of all, I get that woke doesn't mean the pop culture definition now, or I mean, I guess it does now, because
it doesn't mean to just be awake.
Yeah, well, originally it was an older word which kind of meant enlightened. You know, it's sort of the same idea. You are aware of the injustice that various people are going through. And I don't like people using the word woke personally. Just like I wasn't keen on people using politically correct all the time. More because it's cliche. Like I'm not big on cliches, but it's, to be fair to the word, I understand the intentions behind it. I'm not necessarily an enemy of that. Just to put that out there. But the thing is, what it is doing, and it's not just wokeism or whatever, it's all kinds of stuff. It's the comedians who rile against it, the comedians who rile with it, whether it's a Hannah Gadsby or a Shane Gillis, doesn't really matter. They're both sort of doing the same thing. And it goes back to Doug Stanhope using MySpace to promote himself. What it has been doing is fragmenting comedy into little groups here and there. Back in the 80s, if you wanted to be a comic, and dating all the way back to the Borscht Belt, where stand-up comedy sort of started in the States, it was about making a room of strangers laugh, not your audience, just whoever the hell happened to be in that room. So Richard Jeni in the 80s became a powerful club comic because he could walk into any room, no matter who was there, and make those people laugh.
Because they were good jokes.
Because he had to know his craft. He had to have his craft down pat. And what ended up sort of happening, and I don't know if you can't really blame political correctness or wokeism or Hannah Gadsby or Shane Gillis or any of these people. I guess it's more of a McLuhan thing. This is what happens as we re-tribalize in digital culture and whatnot, is we all got broke down into these little tiny groups. Like this group's like this kind of comedy, and this group over here likes this kind of comedy.
So what area are you saying this happened in?
It started happening in the late 90s, as far as I can tell.
I don't think it was a McLuhanism. I think it was internet.
Yeah, that's a McLuhan type thing.
What I'm saying is
re-tribalizing. As we re-tribalize into these little groups, this group, is offended by this thing. This group's offended by that thing. This group here loves this thing.
Sure,
this group loves that thing.
In a more direct sense, comedy really started to take off in the 90s, like in a way, because it kind of died in the late 80s.
Yeah, there was the comedy boom and the comedy crash,
the big boom in the 90s. There was such a glut of it that you could afford to specialize or re-tribalize, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
But then you could. I think it's great that. Who's that dude? Canadian dude does all the race humor.
Oh, Russell
Peters. Yeah, I don't care for it much, but his crowd work, he would just go out and he'd say, "Where are you from?" He'd do the accent, make fun of it. Like it was racist comedy.
Yeah, but everybody was cool with it. They were there for that reason.
And it was very, very specific for a long time. He built a career on it. Dane Cook was the biggest comic on the planet for a while. And I still don't know what was funny about Dane Cook.
I watched 2 specials, and I laughed really hard at 2 of the jokes. And I mean, he was making huge crowds laugh, so he must have been good.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying he wasn't, but you could afford to specialize. I guarantee you can't take Dane Cook and stuff him in some southern country bar somewhere and have a bunch of people laugh.
Not in 85.
Not in 85, no. That's a very badly beat up Dane Cook.
I mean, comedy changes drastically. Like I like comedy. I like the history of comedy. But I've bought Bob Newhart albums, the Button Down Mind of Bob Newhart. I bought Mort Saul. I bought Henny Youngman. These are old guys. Jackie Vernon.
I bought No Jacket Required by Phil Collins, which
not really related, but I guess
in its way it was kind of funny.
But I guess it's comedy for some. And if you listen to those albums today, they don't date all that well. I've noticed that for sure. So one of the things, on an aside to that, though, is that the Mort Sauls and the Lenny Bruces date very poorly. The Henny Youngmans and the Rodney Dangerfields, not so bad. Those one-liner comics, even if it's got some racist, like maybe a joke about the Polish army or the French army or something like that. Oh, why does the Italian Navy have glass bottom boats so they can see the old Italian Navy? Those sort of jokes, they still kind of work. They're not hilarious, but you get it. You giggle a little bit, you sort of get it.
And
whereas Saul's jokes about the political situation in the 50s, wow, well, not that funny anymore.
The great thing about the one-liners is they're over instantly. So as soon as you go, like, that wasn't fun, you're already into the next one. You don't have time really to react and let it settle.
Yeah, if 3 of them don't work, that's okay. It's only a minute of your time.
If that.
Big deal, right? You're moving on to the next joke. So it doesn't really matter.
Unlike some of Norm's joke that run like 8 minutes for a bad punchline at the end.
Well,
and I understand that because that's there to make you suffer.
Well, I mean, to be fair to Norm, though, he's super versatile because he did do a lot of the one-liner type stuff on his Weekend Update routine.
No,
it was filled with one-liner type stuff.
No, but I understand.
But he also did the long meandering jokes.
To take 7 minutes out of my life to give me a bad pun, I get that.
He gives you laughs along the way, lots of them.
Yeah.
But if you're not into his style, it's not going to work for you brutal. At all. It'll just be a bunch of looking around, being awkward.
I got a question for you.
Fire away.
What was our point about this?
How wokeism saved comedy.
No, I mean just like the last 2 minutes because I've forgotten entirely.
We're talking about comedy doesn't age that well necessarily.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. Obviously, some comedy does age that well. A guy falling down, someone getting kicked in the nuts. The really broad physical comedy generally will continue to work.
And I stand by this. I tried to like the Stooges, and I didn't get them. I downloaded all of the Stooges in order, and the first 4 or 5 of them were terrible. They weren't funny, and then they got their rhythm. They figured out how to make bomb comedy funny. They're hilarious. They're hilarious. They got that. They made themselves the asses.
I can totally believe it. Yeah. I haven't watched a lot of them myself, but my love of Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Looney Tunes isn't new by any means. And I've watched, I love the 30s Popeyes cartoons, the Max Fleischer stuff and whatnot.
They're okay.
I find that stuff hilarious, inventive, really fun. But that's broad. They're dealing with really, a lot of the times it's not even language based, right? So words don't even really matter all that much. The more you're relying on language, the higher the chance things are going to fall apart. A kick in the nuts is a kick in the nuts, whether it's 2,000 years ago or today.
Yeah. But Dimitri Martin is not everybody's favorite comic.
No, and he might not age that well because some of it's pretty language based.
His chart stuff that he draws on, great stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that too.
Gets you right in the...
I have a soft spot for his comedy stylings myself, but it's not for everybody, especially his early stuff like that If I special.
The If I don't know if that was comedy, but I laughed quite a bit.
It's a little pretentious, but I love that one.
I'll give him some credit. He's working hard. It's super pretentious, man.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. In any case, I don't think wokeism had a negative impact on comedy. It just changed it. Like it's always changing, and those jokes still fly. People still tell racist and sexist and everything jokes under a new context now. We're laughing ironically or how wrong it is to tell it.
We shouldn't laugh at this, but we're going to power through.
Yeah, and it seems to work fine. I see audiences laughing, although I do think the fragmentation thing has happened, where
it definitely has.
Now you're expected to. I'll hear comedians and they'll say, "Well, if you don't like my style, then just leave." It's not that hard to just look me up on YouTube and get an idea of who I am before you come to the club. Well, you never did that in the '80s. You had to be good enough to make that room of strangers laugh. That's no longer the case. Now you're supposed to look up who that person is.
And I think there's been enough fragmentation, and I don't want to politicize this too much, but I know on the left and the right, they both do it, and they just get into, which is essentially abuse. It's like clapter, but abusive. I hate Biden. I hate Trump. And then everyone applauds. But none of it's a good joke. Like Dennis Miller, I thought was clever for a while, but I can appreciate the wordplay sometimes, but none of it's funny.
Yeah, well, I have a problem with all those late night shows.
Like
for that
Hannah
reason.
Gadsby was not funny.
Not funny.
The first bit of her special was okay. They were
first
jokes.
20 minutes was fine. And it was regular jokes.
It devolved into everything's bad.
A big speech, and she cried at one point. Like, if I had been thinking that was funny, then I really suck as a human all of a sudden. Like, that's...
Yeah.
If I was like, that last 30, 40 minutes,
make her mascara
that
run.
was funny. Then I'm a dick all of a sudden, right? So, like, I can't even laugh at it, even if it's just gross.
That's a hard trust to overcome. Like, I don't want to watch any more specials because, in all honesty, I didn't necessarily come for the abuse or the horror. But if you can make it funny... in a comedy club where it should be, I'll go and laugh.
Yeah, well, and I will say, I don't know about you, but I think you're similar too, to some degree. I'm not so worried about it. Like, I'm not a big fan of political comedy. So whether it's Stephen Colbert or Stephen Crowder, whoever the hell that guy is on YouTube,
He's not a comedian.
they both run what is like a late show kind
Tucker
of format.
Carlson, I think he is a comedian.
They both do a late show kind of format thing, but one is left wing and one's right wing. And when they're doing their political humor, I don't love it, right? But as soon as they get off that, I don't care who it is. If they tell a good joke, granted, Crowder doesn't have a lot of great jokes, but that's not the point. The point is, I could care less if a comic is left or right wing. I could care less if a comic is okay with telling racist jokes or not okay with telling racist jokes. If their craft is enough to make me laugh, I'm fine. And I can skip over the jokes I don't like. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge the remainder of their set because they told X joke that offends my personal sensibilities.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'll just be like, don't care for that one. Let's see what the next one is.
If it's a bad joke, then you can just ignore it. They're trying it out or it doesn't work. If it's a bad joke meant to evoke like an emotional response from a crowd that loves them,
Yeah.
that's a terrible joke. I get a little offended by that because they're clearly trying to play on my emotions and not make me laugh.
Yeah, I don't like people try to play with me. And what if I feel like I'm being manipulated? Like a pretty waitress who flirts with you. Like, piss off. I don't want you to try to get extra money by flirting with me. That's gross.
Yeah, I've seen your face. There's no way a pretty waitress would ever. Ever.
Thank you. So
Yeah, I get it,
justified for judging them when they do it.
I feel the same way. Like, who are you kidding, lady?
Anyways, we're at 21 minutes.
Oh my God. All right. So.
Okay, I think we proved our point, right?
We fixed wokeism.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it, man. Comedy's still good. It's been good all the time. And yeah.
If you were worried, keep coming back to these are seminars now?
No, we're friggin' nobodies.
Oh, yeah. Well, keep coming back.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, cheers. We'll
Right.
see you on down the trail.
So long. You can shut that off?
Yeah.
Okay.